Before Mel Robertson became a declutter expert and happiness coach, she was a cluttered, depressed, and suicidal adolescent, and no one thought she would make it to see her 18th birthday. Now she's clutter-free and accesses her birthright of happiness, well-being, and abundance on a daily basis. And she wants you to know that no matter how much clutter you have or how low down on the vibrational scale you feel, you can get clutter-free and experience your birthright too. Mel is your wake-up call in a world where many falsely claim that addressing the physical clutter alone is enough, and that you can get clutter-free if you just follow a schedule and stick to it. Although she does believe that a regular schedule is helpful once you've addressed the root of the clutter. And now Mel shares the truth about being a woman who overcame her struggle with clutter and depression without feeling overwhelmed and losing herself in the process, when she shares her experience and ideas in her newsletter, on social media, and in sessions with her private clients.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. And it's really an honor to be here as a channel for spirit. My life is totally blessed today, and you'll hear more about that later. But what I want to share with you tonight is this month's topic is about abundance. And so, how many people out here already know that abundance is your birthright? Excellent. If you don't already know, don't worry. You're not alone. And I actually didn't realize that abundance was my birthright for a long time either. In fact, I expected to be cluttered, miserable, and depressed for the rest of my life. I experienced a lot of trauma growing up, and no one expected me to make it to my 18th birthday. And I'm really nervous up here because this is my first time talking in front of people on stage, and I feel like I've totally lost my train of thought, so I'm just going God, let me just start over. Welcome to Power Up. How many people here are ready to get powered up tonight? Are we ready to get powered up? Yes, let's get powered up. Oh, gosh. Yes. So I thought that I was going to be cluttered, miserable, and depressed for the rest of my life. All growing up, I was depressed and miserable and completely cluttered. I even had a therapist tell me that I had probably been depressed since I was 4 years old. And in my room, there were 2 paths on my floor that only I knew how to navigate. The rest of the floor was covered. And that was the inside. That was the outside. But what I didn't realize then was that the outside is just a mirror of the inside. And because on the inside, I was a cluttered mess too. I had all kinds of repressed emotions, limiting beliefs, and resentments I was hanging on to from a childhood that had been littered with trauma and loss. Just to name a few of the things, my parents had separated early when I was about 4 or 5. And growing up, I experienced multiple sexual traumas. And then by the age of 15, I experienced what I consider the dark night of my soul. And I lost my older brother to suicide. And I was the sole inheritor of all his belongings at 15 years old. So needless to say, you can understand why I thought I'd be cluttered, miserable, and depressed for the rest of my life, right? Well, after I lost my brother to suicide, my life pretty much spiraled out of control for a while. And I actually got kicked out of my high school for being a danger to myself and others. Me, a danger to myself and others. And my life got so dark that really no one expected me to make it to my 18th birthday. And so at that point, my parents sought help for me. And what that looked like was I spent the next 1.5 years of my life in a residential treatment center for adolescents. And it was a really dark period in my life. But what I want to say about that is that at that time in my life, even as dark as it was, I knew that my life was being guided by spirit. From as early as I can recall, I remember knowing that we're all brothers and sisters because we came from the same father. I wasn't brought to church ever. It was just something that I knew inside of me. And then within a few years, Spirit led someone to come actually take me to church. It wasn't my family. Someone from outside of my family started taking me to church. and I became a sponge. And for the next 7 years, all I wanted was the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I wanted to be able to access the Holy of Holies. And after losing my brother to suicide, I was informed that he didn't quite make it into heaven. And needless to say, that didn't resonate with a 15-year-old in my heart. And that stopped answering my questions. But I became a seeker of the truth. And the greatest lesson I learned during that period in my life was that I could have a personal relationship with God. That I could talk to Spirit just like I would talk to you, my best friend. No holds barred. And it was really because of that relationship that I made it through the darkest night in my life, the darkest night of my soul. You know, I'm so blessed to have made it through all of that. And because I continued to seek, Spirit continued to lead. And while I was living in that residential treatment center at 15 years old, I was introduced to yoga and mindfulness. And what I learned through yoga and mindfulness was how to be present for all of that repressed emotions, all of those limiting beliefs, and all of those resentments I was carrying. And because I learned to be present for all of it, something totally unexpected happened in my life. And that was that I got organized from the inside out. Now, what the heck is that, right? What I mean by that is because I became willing to witness all of that stuff that I had run away from my entire life, what started to happen was that I started to make space on the inside. And because the outside is a mirror of the inside, as it is above, so it is below, as it is within, so it is without, by starting to make space inside me, the outside started to match naturally. It was law. And so what that looked like was I actually started to declutter and organize my outside space effortlessly. I didn't have to force myself to do it anymore. It just happened naturally, and I actually started to enjoy it. And it's actually one of my favorite hobbies now. I love creating space. But it didn't happen overnight for me. There are no quick fixes. Getting organized from the inside out was a gradual process. But the unexpected gift that happened from being willing to be witness to everything that I had been running from was that the more space I created, the more abundant my life became. There was a direct correlation. The more I became willing to witness everything that I had been running from, all the inner clutter, the more I was able to access abundance in all areas of my life. You deserve to be abundant. It's your birthright. Jesus said, I have come that you should have life and that you should have it abundantly. What does it mean to be abundant? To be abundant is to be in the flow. It's well-being. To be abundant is to experience having more than enough in all areas of your life. You deserve to have an abundance of love, health, joy, and wealth. And because it's your birthright, what that means is that it's always accessible to you. It's always right here. And because it's your birthright, it also means that if you're not experiencing abundance in all areas of your life, that there's something blocking the flow. That's the inner clutter. And all you have to do is learn how to stop blocking the flow. And all that's required of you to do that is just your presence and your willingness to meet yourself right where you are in this moment. That is it. Does that sound like too much to ask? To access your abundance in all areas of your life? Well, who out there is ready to claim your birthright? Who is ready to experience abundance in all areas of your life? Well, great. Well, I want you to stay tuned for tonight's call to action, where I'm going to share with you a simple tool that you can use to get into the flow and access abundance in all areas of your life. Now I'll turn it back to Kat.
Woo! I'm coming. All right. Wasn't she amazing and she was nervous? Wow. Oh, wow. All right. So, before we go into the call to action, maybe you have some questions. Maybe she's spark something within you. And remember, a question that you have, someone else might have, and you're brave enough to bring it up. So I'm going to come down, which means that I'm going to find you if you have a question, and hand over the mic. Usually when I raise my hand, other people raise their hand. See how it works?
Can you please elaborate about being in the moment?
Yes, absolutely. Elaborate about being in the moment. Clutter really builds up because it's about our avoidance of things. So we avoid, we resist, and we deny. And so all that's required of us to clear that inner clutter is to learn to just be present. And that's about allowing what is to be right in the moment. So sitting still and being quiet and allowing whatever is to be there. If you have a twitch in your toe, just noticing that twitch in your toe without trying to change it or fix it. Or if you have an ache in your stomach, just being aware of what the sensation feels like and not trying to change or fix anything. It's about allowing what is to be there without resistance and without clinging and trying to hang on to it. It's finding that place of neutrality. Does that help?
A little bit.
Okay. Anyone else?
Are there any other questions?
So realizing that life continues to have its ups and downs. So when you were facing some of these downs, how did you get yourself out of those when you were dealing with all these other issues?
Good question. My strength really came from my relationship with Spirit. I mean, there were so many times that I was just in the fetal position, curled up in a ball, like crying my eyes out, screaming and raging at God. But it was because I could have that personal relationship that He was my best friend, that I could expose myself in that way and just be real and just bare my soul. And by being able to do that, I was given the strength and the grace to get through it. And knowing that, I had this knowing that it couldn't be for naught. Like I wasn't going through all this just because I was supposed to go through it. It had to have a bigger purpose. It had to be used to help others someday. And I think that was part of my driving strength too.
Do we have any other questions?
I'm involved as a youth director at One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living, and so I deal with youth. And you talked about having problems during the time you were in high school, and I was wondering if you have some ideas about how youth could be reached when they have problems, and how someone could serve as a resource to guide them to a better place.
You know, for me, I think the greatest gift that I received was people that were loving and caring that came into my life, because I was brought up and I spent most of my life not really living with my family and pretty much raised by people in treatment. And it was those relationships that I built with people, those connections that I had that really helped me to grow, having people that I could trust in my life that saw my strengths and saw my potential that I couldn't see in myself, and guiding me to that. You know, and letting me do whatever I needed to do, but always seeing that potential in me and knowing that I had that. Yeah.
In your introduction, Kat shared that you work with clients as well.
Yes.
So in working with a variety of clients, I'm sure that over the time you tend to see maybe one or two common challenges that you witness in your clients. So what is that common challenge that you witness, and how do you service that commonality?
Absolutely. What is the common challenge? So the common challenges that a lot of my clients have are clutter comes from avoidance. And so they have problems finishing what they start, following through, and just doing general daily maintenance tasks like washing the dishes and doing the laundry. Those things are really hard for them to do. But what I've realized, it's like when you try to force yourself to do something from the outside, it's all this force and all this effort, and it's so hard. But when you just get quiet and start to make the space inside, that you just meet yourself right where you are, making that space starts to shift you inside to where you don't have to force yourself to declutter. You're changing inside, so your behaviors start to change. So you procrastinate less. You put that thing away right when you're done with it. Those things start to change over time from making the space on the inside, rather than you can try to do all these things to force yourself to get it done, but it's all this effort and all this struggle, and it should just be flow. It should just come from the inside out. And it's a gradual process. Like, I don't not procrastinate on everything in my life. I don't not have a little bit of clutter on my desk, you know what I mean? But it's just, gradually going with the process and allowing yourself to evolve and be in the refiner's fire.
I'm coming.
Lots of
away, I
questions
know.
tonight. As sweat's pouring down my face from these bright lights.
Well, how do you decide or recognize what it is you're running away from? Because not everybody is that honest with themselves, A lot of people are in such denial, they don't see it. So what is a good trigger to see what you're running away from?
I think the most important thing is that it doesn't get revealed to us all at once. It's like you have to build a relationship. I ran from myself my entire life because I didn't want to feel any of those uncomfortable emotions. And so I was constantly on the run, avoiding myself. And so what I had to learn to do was have a relationship with myself. And you have to do that by making time every day. And so it's making that time every day to make that connection. Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question. I'm coming.
Right? Seriously.
I was just curious if you ever have clients come to you who have tried fixing the outside first and it didn't work, and then they realize that they need something more spiritual.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've worked with clients in their homes. That's how I started. And now I primarily just do the inner clutter coaching with clients. And yeah, I've actually worked with a client in their home, and it took them a couple years before they even ready to start doing the inner work. And now she's transitioned from someone who's had me coming in her home to now she's coaching with me, doing the inner work now. So it's a gradual process. I mean, we're working with people who've maybe been hoarding their entire life, and their houses, they're surrounded by clutter in their entire house. Like, you're not going to get through that overnight, and you're not going to change those behaviors overnight. You have to be willing to meet yourself where you are on a daily basis and really build that relationship. You don't make a best friend by just saying hi like once a week, right? You got to get down to the nitty gritty. You got to meet yourself. You got to be present for what's there, and you got to be willing to witness whatever shows up. Whether it be some anger, whether it be some fear, whether it be sadness, whatever comes up, you just let it come up and you let it be there and you let it do what it needs to do, and then it goes bye-bye. But what happens is we just resist it and we fight it and it gets stuck when all it wants is our attention. We just have to acknowledge it. Oh, hi, sadness. Okay, there's some sadness. I don't need to know why. There's just some sadness. It's just energy. And by that being willing to just see it and notice it, it's gone. And then you've made space. And now you're going to make space on the outside too. And now things are going to change on the outside too. Like, if your life is really busy and you're one of those people that just doesn't have time to do anything, when you start to make space, you start to have more time in your life. More time opens up. It's just magic when you do it.
All right, thank you. So, I know that you want to know, what are these tools? What were you talking about? How is it that we can incorporate this into our lives? So let's welcome Mel Robertson back on stage.
All right, how do we do this? How do we allow what is so we can access the flow of our abundance? It's not really complicated. Like I said, it requires your presence and your willingness to meet yourself right where you are. And so all it takes is you being willing to start off. If you don't have a meditation practice already, start with 5 minutes. But if you already do, start with 15 minutes. And it's just a practice I call allowing the now. And it's just for you, if you need to place your hand someplace on your body so you can feel a connection to your body. If you want to try and just close your eyes with me for a minute, we can just do it really quickly so you have an experience. Just notice what it feels like for your hand to be on your thigh, or your butt to be resting on the chair, or your feet to be sitting on the floor. Let that be your point of attention. That's where your mind wants to be. And all you're doing is just witnessing and noticing whatever sensations are going on there. It's about getting curious and exploring and wanting to know and just witnessing and watching. Sometimes you'll have a little muscle twitch go through your thigh, and just witness it, just watch it. But what's going to start to happen as you start to do this every day, you're going to start to build a relationship with yourself so that that inner clutter will start to reveal itself, because it doesn't show up all at once. It doesn't come up so that you can't handle it. It will always come up in a way that you're ready for. It took over a year for me really doing this practice before what I consider kind of my core wound, my core trauma was kind of revealed to me in meditation, and I was able to work through a lot of the emotions and the pain that was coming up from that. So don't go in with the expectation that you're going to get these insights and all this stuff is going to happen. The whole intention is to just be present and witness what's going on without trying to change it. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to cling to anything. You're not trying to resist anything. You're just witnessing what's there. And so just breathing and paying attention to the warmth of your hand on your leg or the pressure of your feet on the floor, and just noticing what that feels like. And when your mind wanders, because it's going to, notice that your mind wandered without judging yourself. Just allow yourself to have your mind wander, and then just gently bring it back. And do this consistently every day, and you're going to notice huge changes in your life, things that you're struggling with. If you're one that procrastinates a lot, you'll find that you start finishing what you start. You'll actually put the dishes away after you wash them, or the laundry away. You know, things will start to change. If your schedule's really busy, you'll find that you change your priorities and make more time for yourself. If you struggle with clutter, you'll find that you just naturally will start to want clear space in your life, because you're making space inside. It has to match outside. It will just start to happen naturally if you stay consistent. But this requires your presence and your willingness to meet yourself right where you are. And those are the hardest things to do, because we have been running from meditation from ourselves for our entire lives, right? So just be willing to meet yourself where you are and commit that you're going to try at least for 5 minutes every day until next week. And I'd love to hear what happens for you over the week. Thank you.
If you're curious and want to book a free Clear the Clutter strategy session with Mel, head over to decluttering.spaces.com and click on the Got Clutter? Let's Talk button. You can also contact her to book a public speaking event.